Hi everybody, today we're gonna check how CLI for Microsoft 365 can help you manage your Entra app registrations. So what's it all about? Let's say this is me and this is my app and I want my app to work with data on my M365 tenant. So let's say retrieve something from SharePoint and create a new team in Teams. And before I can do that, I need to go around one tiny detail which is off. And in order to do that, we developers use Entra App Registrations or Entra App Rec, which are kind of a contract that define all of the ways your app will be able to authenticate towards your tenant and what, let's say, roles, scopes, permissions, and other stuff it will allow it to manage different parts of your M365 tenant. And then for my app can use this Entra App Rec to authenticate towards my tenant and get me unblocked with my work. Sounds awesome? Before we go further, first, how to get CLI from Microsoft 365 were really easy since it's an npm package. You can use the standard npm install-global, so you can install it globally, or you can use the yarn global add command. And we also expose it over Docker, so you can use the docker run command to get our latest image. And among many commands, CLI offers also Entra app commands, which allow you to create, get, list, basically manage your Entra app registrations. And since CLI always offers something unique, also here we offer a save option, which allows you to save your created Entra app registrations in the context of your work, in the context of your project, and then use dedicated M365 app commands that will allow you to manage those created Entra app registrations which are correlated or part of your project. Sounds cool? Let's see a short demo which I already recorded with Arjun and Waldek about this functionality, and let's go.
Okay, hi everybody. This is CLI for Microsoft 365, and today with me I have two of my co-maintainer friends, Waldek Mastykarz and Arjun Menon. So do you want to do a short intro about yourself?
No, Arjun, go. You
No.
want to go? You want to go first?
Alphabet it is, isn't it?
Go.
No choice. Hey everyone, I'm Arjun Menon. I am a co-maintainer of CLI for Microsoft 365. I'm also a member of the PNP team. So we've been doing an awesome maintenance work for quite some time. So happy to be in this session to show you what cool features could be done with CLI.
And you're
What do you
also
want,
an MVP.
I'm also an MVP.
Not-
I thought the
not-
picture
Yeah,
speaks.
it's on the
I
wall,
thought
Yeah.
it's on
the
the wall,
picture
yeah.
speaks
A
louder than
reminder,
words.
right? A reminder, like not to
Reminder.
forget. Like, ask me about.
This one. Over to you, Waldek.
Yeah, perfect. I'm also on the CLI team. I've been there since day one. Other than that, I work at Microsoft since four years. CLI is one of the few things that I do, and it's still a passion project of mine to be involved with it, and excited to be here. I'm excited to talk about one of the topics that are near and dear to my heart, which is auth.
Oh yeah, perfect. And you were MVP.
I was an MVP. I was an MVP for 12 and a half years until I joined. So
Lot of time. I won't ask how long you're coding. Okay, anyway, today we're gonna talk about Entra apps. So what is it all about? I mean, Entra apps, are like apps we put inside Entra and we have like Pacman inside our Entra? Who can explain it to me? So I don't know anything.
first things first, right? My Microsoft Entra is the identity platform that we offer at Microsoft for you to be able to basically manage access on Microsoft Cloud. And it's really, really broad. It's all encompassing. It goes all the way from, identity, role management, permission management, conditional access. It's really, really broad. One aspect of it is Microsoft Entra Identity, which we previously referred to as AAD, right? So we renamed that at some point in the past. And now we refer to it as Entra Identity, as that there's very much this specific aspect of it related to identity management, including apps, right? And when we think about apps, we tend to abuse or overuse this term. Everything's an app. In the context of Entra, we kind of have two things. You have an app reg where you register your application. So imagine that you want to build an application that communicates with services on Microsoft Cloud. Yeah. Obviously, that communication isn't anonymous. You don't want to expose resources anonymously on the internet because that is asking for issues, right? So you create an app, and you create an app so that you can secure the access to the resources that your app needs. And that can be anything from services, think storage, eVaults, compute, anything you want to do, all the way to APIs that you use. So you create an app and you create actually an app reg. You register an app. You basically an app reg represents your application on Microsoft Cloud. Like it kind of gives its shape, and it contains some of info about all the things like name, icon, and the URL where your application lives, to all the way to how users can authenticate and authorize with it, and what that application is allowed to do, like what APIs can it call. So all of that is defined in the app reg. Then we have something called a service principal, also known as enterprise app. So you can think
Whoa.
of it as app reg is the template, the definition. Service principal slash enterprise app is the instance of it in a tenant. So imagine I build an app, I define it in my AD, or my Entra directory, my tenant, and you want to use it in yours. Well,
Okay.
the way we go about it is that the moment you connect to my app, Entra will create an instance of it in your directory so that you can see and manage specific aspects of it for your own environment without affecting mine. So that way we can have multi-tenant applications, basically one app that serves multiple environments. So that is kind of like the high
Yay.
level overview. So far, so good. Are you
Yeah,
still with me?
good. I got lost in the icon section. Yeah, when you said you can the icon, my mind exploded. But
You mean the Entra icon? Like all
yeah,
the
yeah,
way the
the
first sentence that I
infra
said? Okay.
yeah. But I kind of got it. Okay, so I have my playground, I have my toys. I want my toys to play with other toys. I need some kind of communication that they can speak to. So I need an app that this toy can talk to another toy. And if I want to use toys from your playground, you need to expose your toy on the edge of your playground as an enterprise app service principal, and then I can grab your toy and play with it. Okay, cool. I really love it. And then you can say what I can do with this toy. You give me permissions, roles, whatever. Now I can finally get it. Like 10 years of development, and this is
Should
the
have
basic stuff,
asked me.
right?
Should
Into
have
3 minutes. Yeah.
asked.
Cut it short and throw it across to and give a title that differences between service principal and AD app. This is going to be a million views, Adam, because
Yeah.
it's been concised it that way. It's amazing.
Analogy, right? It's a toy. Well, it's
It's a
not really.
toy.
It's a very powerful toy, right? It's a tool in a toolbox
Like
that you've
Megatron
got.
or these kind of
Yeah,
tools.
yeah. And I guess like the most important part is that auth and identity is hard, right? Like, yes, it's easy to, put a text box, password box on a page and ask people to authenticate, but then everything that goes behind it, like conditional access policies, not to mention doing it in a safe way that cannot be hacked and abused, like that is extremely hard. And I think people often underestimate complexity that is involved in that, which is exactly why at Microsoft we said like, don't reinvent the wheel, just use ours. It's plug and play, and we will take the burden of making it safe, secure, following best practices, recommendations, standards, whatever there is, so that you can focus on building your app where you can make a difference, as opposed to building plugin and a login box that the customer's like, yes, that's cute, but I need my app.
Yeah, it's funny you say
What
it's
it,
complex because many times I asked you this question, Waldek, what do you like most in CLI? So is it we have so many cool features, an AI assistant, and interactively context, and you always say the same boring thing. I like that it simplifies creating Entra app, and I was like, oh man, again, why? I mean, like,
What? Yeah, exactly. Right. So as we said, right, like when you create an Entra app, it consists of quite a few things. Like one of them is a name, but it can go all the way to role management, permission management, conditional access, conditional assignments. Uh, it can contain a bunch of stuff. And as a dev, what is the first thing you need to do when you want to build something on Microsoft Cloud? You need to have
define
an
the
app
icon.
reg to
app
have
reg.
your app have identity on Microsoft Cloud. That's something that you need to do. And so one. Two, ideally, because so there are a few ways in which you can do it. You can go to the Azure portal or Entra portal and create it there. Just click through the UI. You can use PowerShell, you can use CLI, you can use the API if you want. Basically, there are many ways in which you can do it. Like for me, the most important part is that you have a repeatable way of doing it. It's like, yes, if you go and you create in yours, you go to UI and click the different things that you need for your app, well, then you will need to write all of that down. You will need to take screenshots, give it to admin, because guess what? You will not be able to do that in production. You will not
What
have
if the
access
UI
to
change?
prod. No, surprise, surprise, right? You will as a dev, you will have no access to prod, and before your app goes live, somebody will need to create representation of your app in the production environment, and that is not you, dear dev, right? So you will need to, in other words, give admins something, an artifact, instructions of sorts, for them to be able to create and configure this Entra app in exactly the specific app that your code needs. You can do it in a doc. And we all know that one thing that devs loves the least is to write docs, right? Like
Yeah.
we don't want to spend time
Yeah.
in Word, in other words, right? So that's exactly why we think, well, so how about we create a script that sets it up? And the benefit there is it not only going between dev and prod, like not only giving it to admins as an artifact, as an kind of instruction set that they can run. It's also great on a development team. Because as a dev, you typically work on your own tenant so that you are not in each other's way. But then everybody on the team ideally needs to have the same Entra app uh, or an Entra app set up in the same way so that the code will work. Because if you do it one way and I will do it in another, it could be that a part of code that assumes API access will break because it will not have it, right? So in other words, as a team, you also need to be able to roll things out. And when things change, you need to be able to re-roll it out again so that you can check when we go eventually to prod, will this thing work? And does it contain everything that we need? Which is why we go back like, well, it will be cool to have a script. But then we go back like, well, you can have a script. But I recall like writing a script that sets up the full Entra app with everything that you need in prod can easily span to like 1 or 2 pages A4. It can be really elaborate because of like the number of things you need to do. You create an app. It takes a moment for it to appear, so you need to wait for it to become available. Then you need to add to it API access, right? The roles and the scopes. Then you need to have admin grant, or you need to add that too. Maybe you need to have a cert on it. You need to add that too. And all of these things take code for you to write. Like there is no one thing, or
Sure.
up until now, up until us, there was no easy way to do it. And that's really cool thing. That was like one of the pet peeves of because that's something that like in my work, I build a lot of samples, example apps. And for every single one, I need to recreate or create an Entra app. And also like in the template or in the sample that I build, I need to include instructions for it too. The last thing I want to do is copy paste Word documents and managing that. So I need a scripted way to do it, right? So finally, someone said, you know what? Enough is enough. I want to have like my holy grail. I want to have one line command that allows me to do it all. Allows me to create any shape of any Entra app that I might ever need under the sun and do it in a single line of code. It can be a long line of code, but I want it to be
But a
one.
single.
That's okay.
I don't want to
One
have
line.
like I want to abstract all intricacies and dependencies and inner workings of Entra and API quirks, and I don't want to expose like if developer's job is to create an Entra app, I want them to be able to do that and not worry about how certain APIs work internally. So which is exactly why, like which is a long way to like why we're here and what's so
Yeah,
cool
I'm so
about the
totally
ability to create
psyched,
Entra apps in
and
CLI.
I want to see it in action. So let's, because we are here for the code. So Valdek, maybe you want to kick it off. Show us your terminal. I want to see how your terminal look. Is it neat or clean, or are there many logs or exceptions go flying around the console? So if you
Well,
could
yeah,
kick
I
it off,
didn't
and let's
practice
see it
this
in
at
action then.
all. I didn't practice this at all. So it's live. It's gonna be authentic. It might or might not work. No. So first things first, right? Like on a screen, you're seeing terminal, and in the background, you see the app reg page in the Azure portal that gives you access to all the Entra apps in your directory. So first things first, we said that in CLI for Microsoft 365, we allow you to create Entra apps. Let's have a quick look at what different things that we offer. So here on the screen, you see a set of commands that we offer that allow you to manage Entra apps. And that's basically, the CRUD operations like create an app, get app, list all apps that you have, delete an app because maybe you don't need one, you want to clean your environment, right? Or maybe update some aspect of it. And then we have two commands also, or two command groups that are all about managing permissions that are attached to the Entra app. So that is kind of the set, like keep that in mind as the scope of where basically anything you might want to do around an Entra app, we offer a command to do it, from creating to retrieving, updating, and removing, all the way end to end, right?
Wally, do you mind increasing the font size a bit if you don't mind?
There you go.
I'm old.
Is that good? Is this good? You want to be bigger?
This is good.
This is good. Okay, cool. We can make it as big as you want. All right, let's go back. All right, the next step is, how about we have a look, like what is kind of the feature set that we implemented when it comes to creating app reg, right? Because like that is kind of what we said. Well, this is really our scope. Like this is our meat. This is where we shine. Like one command to create a full app, and that is exactly what you're seeing here, right? So you're seeing all the options that we expose that spans from name, multi-tenant, redirect, URIs, platform, where it's an Entra app that is meant to work with a single page app, web app, public client, whether it supports implicit flow. Should it have secret or not? Like which APIs it's supposed to be able to access, right? Which scopes it have, which roles it have, the URI of the app. Does it expose any scopes? And it just goes on and on and on and on and on. All the different options that we expose so that, again, you can create your Entra app with whatever shape you might need in a single line and command, and not worry about any intricacies. So with that, how about we create an app? Folks, give me a name. Give me a name of the app that you would like me to create. 3, 2, 1.
Test 1, 2, 3.
Test 1, 2, 3. Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. 3, 2, 1. The application is there. We get back app ID,
just
object
like
ID, tenant ID, just like that. And to show to you that we are not in Figma, let me refresh my Entra page, and here's our app. And if we go to this app, like you will see, it's basic. It's just basically the name, and we create the app. Why? Well, because we didn't specify anything else. We just specified the name. So now we have kind of like a place to start, but it doesn't really do anything yet. Like you wouldn't be able to use it with anything because like it doesn't define anything. It doesn't have any API access. You cannot authenticate to it yet. So yes, it's a great place to start. It's a simple thing, but it doesn't do anything. So how about we look at a practical case? Imagine that you would build a single page app. So basically an application that runs in browser, client side. It doesn't have server side code, and it all runs, client side calls, authenticates based on that. Right? So for a single page app, you will have what? A URL where the application lives, and that app might need to do something with the Microsoft Graph. So in this case, let's say you wanted to be able to read info about the users and calendars, right? And because it's a SPA, and it's a SPA that we've built in the past, today we will do it in another way, but in this case, we want to enable implicit flow, right? So let's say we want to have all of that. Again, long line, but it's a single line, single command for you to invoke. And the great thing is, like, you don't need to memorize it, right? Because like one, we have great examples in our docs, and two, we allow you even to complete the options that we've got available. So you will get basically, as you tab through it, you will get all the kind of intelligence around what options there are available to you. Let's get back to Entra. Let's refresh the list. And here is our Entra apps, right? So it's called here My Entra app. This is the app that he created. And then here, if we go to auth part, we can see that the URLs that we passed are here, right? So now we have a fully functional app. Like we have also the implicit flows that we included. They are here too. And if we go to API access, it will be there available too. 3, 2, 1, there you go. So these are kind of the application or the scopes that we requested here. Calendars read, directory read all. They are here, but there's one caveat here.
Yeah,
we didn't
grant the
allow
permission. Yeah.
exactly like we didn't grant
Didn't allow.
admin consent to use this app. In other words, when a user tries to use this app, they will get pop-up saying, "Hey, admin in your org has not allowed you to use this app. Ask them first to grant it."
So
Right?
what now? What do we need? Do we need a second line of code?
Well, you wish, because we fixed that too, right? So let's look at another example.
Perfect.
And again, like our goal
Nice.
was to really look at the breadth of use cases that are there and support them all in this easy way as we can. So for this goal, we added the option named, surprise, surprise, grant admin consent, which does exactly that. So in this case, let's say you want to create a Microsoft Graph a connector that allows you to ingest data from external app to Microsoft 365. And that thing, like in this case, it will use secret, and it will use app only permissions that we have here that allows it to read-write the items that belong to the connector and also create a connection, right, that belongs to the connector. And here you can see we have an app ID option. We also have secret, because here we said we want to create secret, right? And we also grant admin consent to the roles that we added to this app. Let's have a look how that looks like in Entra. Let's go back, let's refresh. Here is our app that we created. If we go to certificates and secrets, we can see that one that we've gotten is WBX. WBX is the same thing, no Figma here. If we go to API permissions here, we can see application roles, which are here. And these are kind of the two roles that we have here and here. And admin consent is here too, which you see with the green checkbox here. So that only shows end-to-end configure app that everybody in our team can now use, or I can use, to kind of build my app. And you can share this line of code with everybody on the team, and then they will be able to use this app, right? So that is a really convenient way for you to create Entra app preset for the use case at hand.
Yeah, but all is good, fine. I really like it, but the line tends to get really long. And I know us developers like magical lines that do everything in one go, but then when the line is too long, you have to use the scroll. It's also not the best experience. So is there some kind of way we can go around it?
Yes, surprise. That's an interesting thing, yes, right? So there are kind of two ways to go about doing things. And it gets all the way, from creating infra in a cloud to creating things like SharePoint site or Entra apps. Some people love to express them in code because it gives them, the ability to easily have a logic around it. So create only something when something is up. I don't know, right? But there's also this other camp that says like, no, no, no. Doing things in code in an imperative way is hard because it's really hard to understand what will I get in the end. So they actually propose the approach where you express thing in config. You have a manifest of sort or file of sorts that kind of expresses the final state that you want to achieve. And then you have code that will process that, scan that, and create all the resources that you need expressed in that way. So we have basically both ways in CLI for Microsoft 365 too, right? You've seen the imperative way. You've seen the way where we express all arguments on the command line. But another way to create an app reg is from a manifest, right? So in this case, right, let me show you the manifest that I've got, right? So this is a portion of a manifest of an Entra app. And again, like it doesn't need to have everything because like it's irrelevant for me to include in the manifest the creation date because I'm about to create this in my environment. So I only include the relevant parts, which also makes it very easy for me to understand what this app all about. And what is this app about? Well, it's the same connector app that we have just had. It has a name. It has two roles to Microsoft Graph, and in this case, it's kind of looking like at the matrix where you need to know that this is the Microsoft Graph resource, right? At some point, you start to like see these GUIDs all over again, and then kind of blend into names, into strings, and
I use Myth.
yeah, right. And here for roles, like you need to pass the GUID because that is how internally roles and scopes are expressed. They're expressed as a GUID, which is a reference to the scope that is exposed on the Microsoft Graph app reg, which is also like an app reg, right? And then in the end, the final thing that you've got is that you say you want this app to be available only in this tenant where you created. So let's see if the app that we get will be exactly the same app that we create. So in this case, we create the app from the manifest, and we use an interesting thing that we've got in CLI for Microsoft 365, where we can point to a file by prepending the file name with an sign. Because otherwise, like a manifest expects a string. So in other words, what you could do is you could read the string into variable constructed in memory and then pass the whole string. That might or might not work, but if you have it in a file on a disk, you can pass the file path with an @ and that will also have CLI read it from disk and basically know the contents of the manifest that you want to use. So let's have a look. Have we created something? Yes, we have. It's here. It's the app from the manifest. If we go to authentication, first things first, we can see that it's a single tenant app, exactly as we expressed here. Let's have a look at the roles. Do we have roles? We do. We do have roles. We didn't include the admin consent yet, but we do have the roles. So that kind of only shows, right, that there are multiple ways to go about it. And at the end of the day, you pick the one that works for you. There is no better or worse. It's only the way that works for you and your team. Right?
And here in Entra, we can also check the manifest, right? So if we click on the manifest on the web page, we can see the actual file. So it's not that you need to remember those GUIDs by heart. There is not like book of GUIDs, okay, and the 000, this is the graph area.
Well, there actually is a book of GUIDs.
Yeah, but what you can do is you can first do it manually here using the UI, the Entra IDEA UI, and then check the manifest you get here and then use it as your template for your manifest to recreate apps and give it over to Arjun, and then he creates it and then I break everything, So
definitely
that's how we can go about it, right?
Yeah, and that is exactly the way I went about this too. Like I didn't write all of this from my head.
So you didn't remember
I created the app.
Oh man.
I thought you did that.
For the manifest.
One question, see, you now you've created at least 4 to 5 apps. Now, I'm a person who clears my terminal every now and then. Okay. Now, let's assume I clear that, and all my previous IDs are gone. How do I know, as a developer? How do I know that what are the apps which I've created? Is there a way to know it?
Well, yeah. So you can obviously see it here. But there's also this, and of course, like there is a way for us to use CLI to list the apps that you have in your environment. But that is like the low hanging fruit, because at some point you might have 10, 20, 50 apps, and then like, okay, I can see all the apps, but which one do I really care about? And we came up with a really cool idea where we think, so you typically will use an Entra app in context of an app that you build, right? So you will have, in other words, project on disk, and your app is going to work to use an Entra app that you've got in your directory, right? So what if you could kind of overlay the context of that Entra app to the project that you've got on disk, so that when you use CLI in the context of that project, it immediately knows which app do you need. So you don't need to specify the ID over and over again, because again, the last thing that you want is every single time you want to do something about it, you need to do what? Go to your project, open the Entra variable in the config or the environment variables, copy the GUID, paste the GUID. Like that's too elaborate. That's too involved for our taste. So it's like, let's introduce an easier way. So when you create an app reg with CLI for Microsoft 365, what you can do is you can add this --save option. And what that does is it creates an app, obviously, but then it will store its info in a file on disk in the current directory. It will create a file named .m365rc. What's in there?
Wow. Interesting.
So in file, you will have one of the things that we store in there are apps. And apps are the apps you save. So in this case, now CLI for Microsoft 365 knows that when you want something about, like, you want to do something about Entra app, this is the app you use. So in other words, what you can do now is you can say app-get. And just that, and with that, just this, you will get info about this app. How does CLI know? Well, it doesn't read your mind. Well, in a way, it does. It reads your mind because it has this info on a disk already. So, and this is kind of the proof, right? App ID that you stored as 5736, 5736 is the app that you got. So that allows you to significantly simplify the way you work and manage the Entra app for a project on which you work. And the cool thing is that everybody on a team can create this file for themselves. And if you don't store it in source, everybody has now their own version of truth. And everybody can easily work in the same way. So you can have universal script that works for everybody on a team because it's fed unique app ID that everybody created for themselves in their own environment so that they are not in each other's way. So you get this really simple way of work without having to create, parameterized scripts, prompt for IDs, or do some other gymnastics, that only makes life hard, right? Our goal was to make it as easy as we can,
This
right?
is
So
cool.
there's one.
This is
Yeah,
so cool. Yeah. So imagine if if you have a complete team, let's say 5 to 10 people are working on an application, and you execute this project, and you can even push it to your source code so that at any point of time, future, you can have your also a helper class written in your code, which will read ID automatically and does the automatically. I mean, you don't necessarily need to share it within your team's chat and everything. I mean, it's so cool. It is.
yeah,
It's
exactly.
so powerful.
Yeah, and I mean, you can also do it in a way that, the moment that you deploy something to UAT or prod, you can store that info too. So every single time you want
Exactly.
to do something, like you know this already. You don't need to guess. You don't need to go to book of the GUIDs and look up like which GUID do you have for which app. Like you know this already because the info is there. And
Okay,
Exactly.
so
That's cool.
we have
yeah,
the
go on,
M365.
Adam.
So we have the M365 Entra app list, remove, get them permission. So that like the Entra app to manage the instance of the app or create it on the Entra side, on the Azure ID or whatever you call it still. And we have the M365 app. So these commands are strictly related to the app that is correlated, created for your app. So it's like without the Entra word in between.
Correct.
So it's short and correct, and I really love this feature because usually I don't know how's your tenant, but my Entra ID is lost in a lot of Entra apps, and I have a lot of chaos there. And I create my Entra apps like I create my files, so it's like test 1 2 3, test 1 2 3 final, test 1 2 3 final one, and so on and so forth. And I just usually lose my apps, yeah. And we know how we work, yeah. Usually a project is not simple. Usually it's not a single Entra app. We have an Entra app for the web API, for the console interface of our app, for the UI, for some other web projects. So there are a couple of Entra apps we have in the scope of our sophisticated a bit project, let's say. And then when you lose them, you need to recreate them, and it's just a waste of time. And I'm like really in love in this feature with the just dash dash save, and then I can keep all my apps in the single place, which is a huge time saver for me at least.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess like another aspect to it is like how often do you need to get back to a project you worked on in the past? Like once in a while it comes back, right? Like you
Every
work
time you get a
on
bug, so
something, yeah, you leave for a month and then you get back to it. Like what was again this app that I used? And again, you can go to your project, grab the GUID, go to Azure, look up like that's too hard. We can
Too
also
hard.
use M365 app open that gives you in browser like immediate deep link to the exact Entra app that you
This
have
is
stored in
cool.
project.
This
So
is
it's a
cool.
one-liner, 3 words that you can just keep in mind. M365 app open, and it takes you directly to the right app, and you can see, how you can see it in the UI. You can change things about it. So it's a really easy way to navigate to the one app that you need. Right. And again, like there are more options too, right? So what if you want to see like what scopes and roles do you have available on the app? Well, you only have one. Ooh, guess what? We have an issue. We're building what? We're building a connector. What
Mm-hmm.
what what roles do you need on a connector? You need two. We only have one.
Oh,
How do we add? Like, do we
how
need to
do
go
we add
to the
that?
UI? No,
So
we don't.
yeah,
No, we don't.
not a good
There
experience,
there's an
right?
easier way. Like we are in command line. We are in command line. Stay where you are and do it the easy way, right? So here again, what we will do, because we work on contextual apps, so we know which app we operate on, and we only want to express the one change that we want to do. Add the missing role to our app and have the consent on it. So for that, again, we have a command, and again, it drops the Entra part. because we know that already. This is a contextually available app based on, again, the .entra65rc file that we have in the current directory. So with
So it
that,
reads our minds and it know which app
yes,
it needs to
Wow.
modify. We need to don't specify the name, the test 1 to 3, whatever, right?
exactly, right.
Perfect.
And here, if I refresh this, it should have been, there you go, it's here, right? So in this case, it's add the scope to the service principal that accompanies this app reg, which is exactly why you see it in the other part and not here, right? So we didn't update the app reg. We actually update the service principal here so that that is immediately available, right? Because like that could be also the case that you use the app in your project, but it isn't in your tenant because you reference an app from another one. So with this, you can add the effective permissions that are defined in your tenant, even though the app lives elsewhere. So that is really like a practical way for devs. Like, I need to be able to call an API. I need to do it now. I don't want to find where that app lives and find maybe somebody else on the team because we share the same app or do whatever. I just need to do my job. Give me the easiest and shortest way to do it, and it's that.
Of
Allowing
course.
you to giving you the right scopes. Yeah.
This is only single use case. Let's say I don't know which permission do I need. I want to experiment on only for me. So I do the I add permissions, check which permission work, and then I say, hey, we need in our Entra app definition, when we create it next time, it need to also have this permission because I tested it on my
Yeah.
own local,
Works.
like let's say local version. And that's when my app like started working. We need those permission in our Entra app then at command. Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
The last thing, and we talked about it already a few times, in fullness of time, like eventually your tenant will look like this. You will have test 1, 2, 3 and my Entra app, and you might not need any of them anymore. Like basically the other day when I prepped for this, I cleaned up over 100 apps that I had no idea what they are. I don't need them. I don't use them for anything. So I just like, what is the easiest way for me just to just clean all of that junk that I don't need? Well, we can do it too, right? So here I've got a script, and how easy it is to read depends on your bash skills or Zesh skills, right? So in this case, what I do is I want to remove all apps created today. The way I go about it is first I get today's date, assign it to a variable, and then I will get a list of all apps with created daytime greater than today midnight. So in other words, created in this day, right?
Yeah, and it's a single line again, single line.
It's a
and
complicated line
CLI
because
for
there we have James Path queries that are powerful, yet like you need to know the cool thing is Copilot. It's
So you're
nothing
trying
that
to say
Copilot cannot assist you with, right? So that is really cool. And basically, we get here list of IDs of all these apps. So let me just first start to run just this, right? So that you will be able to see like step by step what the thing does. Let me do this. So here you can see are the IDs of all these apps. So we have 573, we have it. We have the CC3, which is there, 05B, 0115, and 9B4. So these are all the 246 app, 246. Why is there 24? Refresh. Are we getting one app more?
we are. What is the date which you have given?
Today. It should. Oh no, it
It should
didn't.
be.
Good question. There is no today because I
No
didn't define
today.
it. Oh, I almost yanked my CLI app, which only shows,
Hmm.
right? This is a dangerous game we're playing here. We're about to. There you go. 5 apps.
Oh,
Always count the apps you want to clear before you actually do them, right? So these are the ideas that we have. And just to be complete, let me run the whole script. And I will now remove all the apps that I created today. So if all is well, if this script runs correctly, I will remain with this CLI for Microsoft 365 app, which we use to communicate with Entra. And we got some
Okay,
wow.
also
so
about this part, right? So this is really cool, convenient way to do it. If you have like old apps, like let's say you want to clear apps that you didn't use for, or you create year ago. Like that's an easy way to go about it. The cool thing is, when I shared the script, I got some great ideas about safer way to do it. So like turn off first to see if there's anything that breaks, then maybe make a report of the apps you turned off, and only then remove them if no one yelled for a week. Right? So these are kind of like, again, like great ideas that we have that we can evolve this more to make it even easier for folks to manage Entra apps that are fundamental part of everything that we do on Microsoft Cloud.
Okay, so you did this cleanup also yesterday. So yesterday you had like 100 apps, and yesterday you cleared your dev tenant Entra apps. This is correct, right?
Correct.
So this explains why my app stopped working on production now.
Yes, there you go. Because like your app, your production code should never take dependency on anything in my tenant. Lesson learned the hard way.
Okay, awesome. So in a nutshell, we really have like in CLI for Microsoft 365 command that can give you everything in a single line. That is just a basic thing you start every development from. So you start with this contract, this Entra app that defines what you can do, how your app will authenticate, and so on and so forth. Cool.
Are you making your developers super lazy, Waldek?
Yes, that is our intent. Like we want to eliminate all plumbing so that the devs can spend time where they make a difference, and you make a difference building the actual app, solving business problems that a customer have, not building plumbing, creating Entra apps. Like that's we need that, but that's not the core. That shouldn't be a core part of your job. So the easier we can make it, the more time you have left to spend on actually building the app.
Perfect.
Yeah, not go by clicking through all the buttons. Just use CLI and do it in a matter of seconds, and use the dash save to just have your app always saved in the context of your project and reuse it. Go back to it in seconds, not going again to the app settings, whatever. So we simplify all this process. And what I really love about it, and this is what I hear a lot, is those features, because a lot of commands, CLI commands, were created, Waldek, by you because you wanted to solve your own problem.
Scratch my own itch. Scratch my own itch is always the best reason to do things, and that's really like the cool thing that I really love is that I'm empowered to do so. And the cool thing is everybody is too, because CLI for Microsoft 365 is open source. So if you have something that you find too hard in your work, submit a PR. If you cannot code, let us know. Submit an issue. Let's talk. Because there are so many things that we can make it so much easier. And the cool thing is, we have platform to do it. We have a place where we can add all of these abilities, again, saving all of you and everybody else a bunch of time and giving you it back so that you can work on the things that matter.
Totally with you on that. Oh, I wish the save thing was there, even our last production deployment. So what happened is we give them a script, and the admin was asking, what is the app ID? I had to give him the details, what, blah, blah, blah. A small save command. You will get it in a JSON, give it back to me. That's it. Bang. Super amazing.
Okay, so to sum it up, if you have problems, come to the CLI for Microsoft 365 and fix
Who are you
them
gonna
with
call?
us.
Or if you have an odd question,
Go
go
to
to
CLI team.
Waldek.
Yes, definitely.
I have my phones
We're here to help.
muted, so and okay, I think we wrap this up. Now I understand why Entra apps are, and Enterprise, and the playground, and what toys do I have, and what toys Waldek just removed. Okay, perfect. Thanks a lot, guys, for helping me out and going through this journey of how CLI for Microsoft 365 can help you manage your apps, Entra apps, and permissions, and simplify your life. And I guess we'll see each other in probably a couple of tomorrow. I don't know. Okay, happy coding, everybody. See you guys.
See ya, folks. Thank you.
Bye-bye. See you.
Okay, awesome. So before we wrap up, if you need any more guidance or help, please do visit our docs, or you can always open an issue or a discussion at our GitHub repository. You can always ping us up in the CLI for Microsoft 365 Discord server, or also in the Microsoft 365 and Power Platform community Discord server, where there is a CLI, a dedicated chat for CLI for Microsoft 365. And at the last Monday of every month, we host dedicated office hours at our Discord server, which is a safe, not recorded call. You can join and ask us any kind of question related to CLI for Microsoft 5 or Microsoft 5 in general. Okay, see you soon and happy coding, everybody.